Hello and a warm welcome to the Entrepreneurial Edge. I'm Chris Bishop. Now, it's every entrepreneur's dream. You start out working for your father in a tiny shop. 30 years later, the fruits of your hard labor are everywhere. You're sitting at the head of a massive fast food chain, turning over 1 billion rand every year. This is the story of George Sombornos, the founder and guiding spirit of Chicken Licken. He surely must be one of the hardest working entrepreneurs we've ever had on this show. I hear a lot of stories on this show over the last 2.5 years or so. This one surely is one of the most remarkable. The man himself is with us, but before we talk to him, let's get down to Boysons in Johannesburg, the heart of Chicken Licken, where we talk to the next generation of the business, his daughter Chantal Sombornos, the general manager of operations.
My dad always used to go to trips to the United States of America, and while he was in Texas one year, he went to a restaurant and found this absolutely amazing fried chicken. And he went back the next day, bought the recipe from the owner for $1,000, came back to South Africa, started mixing the recipe up at home, and then started testing it in the Dairy Den. After that, he decided he needed to find a name for this new concept of his. And one of his waiters actually came to him and said, well, why don't you use the name Chicken Licken? I read that story to my children all the time. So as a thank you, my dad gave the waiter 300 Rand, as well as a copy of the book of Chicken Licken, the original. And that's basically how we started. That was in 1981, and we started at the Dairy Den, which used to be my grandfather's. And I guess it's just grown from strength to strength since then. We started off pretty slowly. I think the first few franchises, my dad actually gave away to people. So he had people that were interested in the franchise. He would then allow them to open the stores without paying a franchise fee or anything like that. And basically, because of our taste and our market appeal, we've been grown strength to strength since then, and we now have over 225 stores countrywide. We have 12 stores in Botswana currently, and we definitely want to move into the rest of Africa, but we first feel that we need to have a firm footprint on all the major centres in South Africa. I think the main problem of moving into Africa would be the exporting problems. We obviously have our chicken, which is made by Rainbow, and all of our chicken is injected. Now, going into Africa, you would either need export licenses, but some of the African countries actually have very strict rules when they import product in, and they generally want to keep everything within their own country. That being said, they would then require the equipment to inject the chicken, you wouldn't have the right specs, so that would be our major stumbling block, is to ensure that we get the right consistency and specification of our product in those countries. The one thing about Chicken Licken that people don't know as a brand is that we fry all of our chicken in sunflower oil, which has no saturated fats. The other thing about Chicken Licken is that the founder of Chicken Licken, George, comes to work every day at 8 o'clock. He's the first one here. He's the last one to leave. You'll sometimes see him walking around the car park picking up papers, ensuring that his shop still looks perfect. And he is still, to this day, dedicated and absolutely passionate about this brand. And I've heard him on occasion say that he would die for this brand.
Now, in the studio with me, I have the man himself, George Sombornos, the founder of Chicken Licken. We saw your daughter there on the film. Now, she was born just a couple of years before you started out.
That's right.
And must have grown up in the business.
Yes. She was born in the business. From the time she was 3, I used to take her with me when I used to go and check the few stores that I had at that time.
Must have been great. And now she's come through and she's got a managerial position. And how does she feel about it?
She knows, you know, that's her future. And she's never debated, I don't want to be in the business. She went to university, she passed, she got job offers, but there was never a question that she'd go anywhere else. She had to come into the business, and she came, and she's done quite well.
Now let's go right back to the beginnings of Chicken Licken. Now, all those years ago when you were travelling around the States, trying different sort of fast food outlets to find out what was out there, you bought this recipe from somebody in Waco in Texas, but you didn't actually know whether it was going to work. I mean, how much of a leap of faith was that?
It was a big leap of faith. It was maybe being a little bit naive and believing that the man wouldn't cheat me, and he didn't cheat me. You know, and he wanted more money, but I only had 1,000, and in the end he said, "You're a young man, I'll give you a chance," and wrote it down for me, and I put it in my pocket, and I had to come back here, and I came back, and I started mixing it under my bed, and then slipping it to the Dairy Den that was my father's business at Uncle Charlie's. And the sales slowly started to go up, and one day a relation said to my father, "What have you done to your chicken?" And he said, nothing. He said, well, it tastes wonderful. He said, that youngster must have done something.
Why is it you had to mix it under your bed?
I didn't want to tell him. You know, but I didn't
What would
know.
he have done if he'd have found out?
Would have been angry. By the time we found out, the sales had started to pick up, so it was a little bit easier for me. And then he said, let's go to Robertson's. And we went to Robertson's and gave them the recipe, and they've been making it ever since.
Now, the sales went up. You were telling me that back in the 1970s, we're talking about, it was something like 200,000 rand a month. I mean, in today's money, that's still quite a large amount. I mean, it was unbelievable.
A lot of money. In 72, end of 72, when I took over, we were taking 25,000, which was a lot of money. And by 78, combination of the recipe and also serving black people in their cars, which at that time you could either go to the Carlton Hotel or to Mike's Kitchen and get served, but otherwise nowhere else. The business started to climb.
And you say 200,000 a month. What could you do with it in those days?
A lot of money. A lot of money. Yes, you could build a building. It was a lot of money. And I was happy to work for the business because my father had worked hard his whole life, and in end of 72, he had a heart attack and he couldn't work as hard as he could before. And I was quite happy for him to take it easy and just count the money and stand in for me when I was on holiday, not working more, going at night and closing with the managers. So for me, I felt that I'm working hard, but at least he's getting a break. And when I told him in 78 if I could have a percentage of the profits, I was talking 4 or 5%. He refused.
And when you started out, what kind of hours were you putting in Chicken Licken?
Very hard hours. I used to, in the beginning, start at 12 o'clock and work right through till 1:30 in the morning. And Saturdays and Sundays till 2:30 in the morning. And on Monday nights, which was my day off, I had to go back at 11 o'clock to wash the milkshake and ice cream machines so that nobody would handle them and break them. So even after the movie, I had to go back on my off day to clean the machine, which I gladly did. And then I would talk business and tell my father, you know, there's new equipment and that. Eventually he would say, you're talking so much business, you're giving me a headache. And then my uncle would even say, really, I've even got a headache after 5 minutes you talk about business. You know, whereas I was madly enthusiastic.
And when did you decide then to go out on your own? And what was the catalyst there? And how small did you start?
Well, I didn't go out on my own. I basically took over the lease and took over the same business. So it wasn't a small business because I took over that business that was taking 200,000 a month. Otherwise, if I had gone and started from scratch, it would been very difficult. So I had a business that had a reputation and basically took it over. When I took over on the 1st of January, 1981, up to that point, my father hadn't talked to me for 3 months, was angry. On the 1st of January, he phoned and he said, what does it feel like to be a boss? And I said, it's great. And he said, now I know you will look after that business because you have fought for it. And then I went to see him, took a couple of boxes of peaches and lychees, and he told me what he thought I should put in the menu, like toasted cheese and that, and we made peace. 3 months later, he died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it was one of those things, but got his blessing, and that's why I think part of it, that's why I've been quite successful under the circumstances, because up to that point, there weren't very few local chains that were successful.
But now you're up to 1 billion rand a year. So how did you manage to grow it from the operation you kind of inherited from your father into the size that it is now?
Well, we franchised quite a lot, and in the beginning, the first 16 to 20 stores, I charged nothing for the franchise. In actual fact, I used to no franchise and no franchise fees for 6 months. And I even used to put 15,000 Rand of stock into the shop to help the franchisee because I wanted to build up a bulk. I grew up to 83, and then I had to go to court for the trademark Chicken Licken that had infringed on the opposition's trademark. And I took the book from the nursery rhyme, Chicken Licken, and the judge said he hadn't read that book for a long time because he had read it as a child. I won the case. After I won the case, then I grew quite quickly.
And how did it go in terms of numbers? How many sort of shops that you had?
We had, by 1990, we had reached 100. By 1995, we had reached about 180.
And today?
About 225.
Okay. So what do you think is your secret to success as an entrepreneur? I mean, obviously, as you said, cleaning out the milkshake machines all those years ago. What is your secret to success?
Well, I got the practical knowledge, you know, and I practiced a lot by making milkshakes, etc. Now it's consistency. It's going to work every day. I go to work every day.
What hours do you put in now?
Put about 7:30 to 5:30.
So scale down a little bit, but it's still a long, long day.
Yes.
Well, anyway, we're going to talk a lot more about your business and wider entrepreneurial issues in the second half. Hold that thought there. It's time for a short ad break. We'll see you right after this. Welcome back to the Entrepreneurial Edge. I'm Chris Bishop. Now, if you have any feedback you'd like to send us, please drop me a line, email at entrep@cnbcafrica.com. Now, still with me in the studio, I have George Sombornos, founder of the fast food franchise Chicken Licken. Just a little aside thought here. I mean, what do you think of the entrepreneurs of today, the young people coming up, compared to when you were making your way as an entrepreneur?
Well, they've got a lot of assistance today that you never had 30 years ago. 30 years ago, some people thought you were crazy to even embark on such a venture. But today it's encouraged, and there is assistance. So I think they have a better chance to do it, and there are many more opportunities now than there were 30 years ago.
I mean, that's one thing. I mean, I know you're, as you said earlier, you're a reader of Forbes magazine. It seems that being an entrepreneur is a lot more, how do we put it, fashionable in this day and age than it was when you started out.
Oh, yes. Yes. I didn't even know that I was an entrepreneur. I actually just wanted to make a living.
And talking about your living now, this franchising that's going on, how many franchisees do you have at the moment?
Just over 225.
And one of the great criticisms, as you know, franchising is a big thing amongst entrepreneurs. A lot of people say, and I've been said to me before, they say, oh, well, you know, if you're franchising, especially even with food, you're making money for someone else. You're making money for the big company. What do you say to that?
No. You're making money for yourself. The company there is to assist you and set you up with a structure that works. And you benefit from the bulk buying. You benefit from the reputation. If you don't have this on your in front of your store and you're selling the same fried chicken, a third of the people are going to walk into your door. So the bulk buying helps you. Your royalty comes down to about 3.5%. And so that is not a lot of money if you are ensured a success. And if you follow the procedures, you'll make money. So that little bit you pay ensures your success, and people come to your door.
And just in the first half, we were talking about your famous secret recipe. How difficult has it been to kind of protect it down the years? People being what they are. No one tried to find out and replicate it?
People would try out. It's difficult to analyze because it's got many components. But if you go to an ethical supplier, and Robertsons are one of the few ethical suppliers in this town. They protect it. The chemist is a director. All the ingredients come by different pipes into a big vat, which is 2 stories high, and then it's mixed automatically by high pressure air, and then it's bagged. So very few people know the recipe, because it's different ingredients that come from different shoots into the big vat, mixed, bagged, and gone.
And during this recession, it seems to have hit everybody. How has it hit Chicken Licken and your franchisees?
In actual fact, we didn't have such a good year last year, in spite of the World Cup, because I think people spent their money on tickets and on booze, and were eating maybe a little bit less. This year, to our surprise, we're having a much better year. We're up about 22%. In actual fact, this year our turnover is going to be closer to 1.3 billion than the 1 billion we took last year. So you don't have to be a mathematician to work out that in 4 years' time we're going to cross the 2 billion mark.
Bearing all this in mind, what are your expansion plans for the future?
Well, we want to get into the major shopping centers in South Africa first. So we're concentrating and focusing on South Africa, shopping centers and drive-throughs, because those are the 2 big growth areas. Of all the chains in South Africa, Chicken Licken's got the highest potential to expand, because we haven't touched the suburbs. We were in the townships, we've hardly touched the suburbs. We had a hard time getting into centers. Centers are letting us in. We're in Eastgate, we're in Menlyn, and more people have access to the product. And we're not a township-based organization or a taxi rank organization anymore. We're in the shopping centers, but we've got a long way to go.
Looking ahead, what are going to be the greatest difficulties, you think, as a business?
To keep up the momentum and keep on getting good franchisees that are prepared to work in their businesses and have their hearts in the business. So to get the right franchisees is quite difficult.
And talking about competition and keeping up the momentum, as you put it, I mean, your famous advertisements, the soul food and the fellow with the afro hair, everyone's seen it. Do you have any input into those sort of adverts yourself?
Oh, yes. No, I control the advertising, and I've done it, from day one. I go to all the meetings. I go to the shoots. I go to the shoots at 7 o'clock with everybody else, and I leave at 12 midnight like everybody else. So I do it so that when I go into the studio, at least I know what to expect. I'm not cold. I know the footage and I approve it, but I give them free rein. Only 2 conditions: no racism, no sexism. But otherwise, those youngsters at my ad agency can do what they want.
And the actual idea of the 70s and the afro, like the Jimi Hendrix look, what gave you that idea?
Because of the soul food. We got into the soul food and the soul man, and the agency came up with the afro look, which worked quite well for about 5 years, but we moved on from that time, and the ads keep on getting better and better all the time. And I've been with the same ad agency now for 10 years, so there's a lot of continuity.
So also, there was a time when you were present in countries like Zimbabwe and further afield in the continent, yeah. But you withdrew most of those. What exactly happened there? Foreign
exchange. Those countries had no foreign exchange. They couldn't pay for royalties. They couldn't pay for the spices. And at one stage, we had a store in Zimbabwe that was the best Chicken Licken in the group. So we did exceptionally well. And we had about 4 stores. And it was a pity that, we had to withdraw and concentrate here.
So where did you pull back from? Which countries apart from Zimbabwe?
Quite a few. We were in Mauritius, and we gave them a royalty holiday for about 3 years. And we had 2 stores, and as soon as they had to pay royalties, then they didn't want a franchise anymore. And in those countries, you couldn't control the advertising. So if we ever go back, there are 2 things that will make sure we control: the chicken, and Rainbow is planning to go into Africa and open chicken farms, so the standard will be there. And we would appoint an ad agency and control the advertising in whichever country. And I think there is a huge future in Africa, but we have to control those 2 aspects.
So when and where do you plan to spread across the continent, looking ahead?
I would think we would go to the countries where there's a lot of disposable income, one of them being Angola, Nigeria, and perhaps even Egypt.
So yourself, as an entrepreneur, I mean, obviously you're a very wealthy man now. Would you say that are you the sort of person who has his own plane, or you're the sort of person who goes to Monte Carlo for Christmas? What sort of a man are you?
No. I don't have a plane. I don't have a second home. I don't have a yacht. I go to work every day. Yes, I have one car, and that's, you know, all I need. And basically, after the first million, if your focus is right, the other millions mean nothing. The first million is the most difficult and the one you appreciate the most.
So what do you do when you want to let your hair down and have a good time?
I still go to New York.
That's where it all began for you, wasn't it?
Yes. I still go to food places, not as many as before. I select where I want to go. I still take pictures of people's menus and come back. Now, I don't do it like before, where I used to take pictures and start running out of the store. Now I let my wife stand there as if I'm taking a picture of her, and I take a picture of the menu.
So you're still hands-on. You still know how many bottles are in all your stores. You still know how many people work there. You're still hands-on.
I know the decor. I okay the decor. I okay the menu boards. All those pictures come through me, and I okay them. When we take new pictures, I go to the studio. I don't sit there all the time, but I sign off all the pictures. So up to now, I'm fine, and you know, I'm not planning to retire at least for another 8 years.
So tell me one thing. Do you ever look back and think, well, if I hadn't have mixed that special spices under my bed behind my father's back all those years ago, you might not be sitting here who you are today?
Yes, yes.
And what do you think when you think about that?
I can't believe sometimes how many customers walk to the store, and I look at them and I think, I started this, all these young people coming into the stores. When I look at Twitter and see how many people talk about chicken licken and hot wings, it's unbelievable. When I first looked at it, I even wanted to start crying, because I just wanted to make a living, that's all.
How do you want to be remembered as an entrepreneur in this country?
Somebody that was fair but firm and honest to the franchisees, and maybe made a lot of people wealthy and created a lot of jobs.
And your grandchildren, do you think they'll follow you into your daughter into the business?
Oh yes, my daughter is already nurturing my grandson, so that one day he will come into the business.
Well, maybe wish you and your family all the very best of luck, and can we pay tribute on the Entrepreneurial Edge to your hard work and enterprise. A truly great entrepreneurial story. That's George Sombonis, the creator of Chicken Licken fast food. Myself, Chris Bishop, it's goodbye.